San Francisco 49ers. Where do you have them this year?
Oh, they're definitely contenders. They have a great defensive line, excellent quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, ton of weapons around them. I expect them to, it's going to be tough. It's tough to get back to the Super Bowl, but I do expect them to be, very competitive and be a contender this year.
I think they're going to be a contender this year, too. They have Jimmy Garoppolo. He is 100% healthy. This team has a better offensive style of game this year. The question is Kyle Shanahan going to do what he has done every single time we've seen him in big games and stop running the ball? This is a good running team. They had a three-headed monster last year. They have to continue running the ball. This is their strength, the offensive line and how they run the ball. It opens up the game for them. If they do that, this defense is more than talented enough to dominate the game with Nick Bosa, who's 100% healthy so far going into the season. So I think they're a contender. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender because there's just that extra wild card team. It's going to be a very interesting season this year with those extra wild card spots. So I believe they're a contender. The Seattle Seahawks.
They're the real deal. Anytime you have Russell Wilson as your quarterback, you're in the hunt. So I'm going to say they're a contender. Adding Jamal Adams on defense along with Bobby Wagner and the talent they have on that side of the ball is going to keep them in games. When you look at the offense, they have a ton of playmakers. Pete Carroll does a great job of creating an awesome culture there. So I'm going to say they're going to be a contender as well.
I'm gonna say they're pretenders. I really do, and I'm not saying this because Jamal Adams is there. And I know a lot of Jet fans are gonna probably say, "Oh, you hate Jamal Adams, so he's over there, so you don't think Seattle's gonna win." Here's the problem. There is no 12th man this year. The stadium is not going to be loud, so that's going to be a huge problem for a team that uses the crowd to give them momentum. I love Russell Wilson. He's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. He's going to keep his team in the games. I love Bobby Wagner. He's the best linebacker in football. Jamal Adams adds a different style of defense to that team, something they've missed since they've lost Thomas and some of the young players, some of the other players that they've lost over the years. But they have no pass rusher this year. They don't. Where are they going to get the pass rushing? They don't have Clark there anymore. They don't have Clowney there anymore. They're not going to be able to create the opposing defensive style of game that they have done over the last couple of years. And here's another thing. Their offensive line is even weaker than they were last year. They lost George Font, who went to the Jets, and they lost a player in retirement. So this is not going to be a strong offensive line. So you're going to see Russell Wilson running for dear life. And Tyler Lockett, as good as he is as a wide receiver in this league, Tyler Lockett had a great season last year. Could he do it back-to-back years? That's going to be the question moving forward for Seattle. The Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, that's a good one. Man, it's tough to call this one because they have so much talent, and you saw what they did 2 years ago, and then they bounced back last year and were a definite pretender. But every team in the NFC West can't be a contender, so I'm going to say they're going to be a pretender. I love Aaron Donald. They just signed Jalen Ramsey to a ton of money. Jared Goff is a guy with the rocket arm, probably the strongest arm in the NFL, but a guy who I'm not ready to believe in him yet. He hasn't been consistent enough delivering the ball.
At least we agreed at something.
Cooper Kupp. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Rams are a pretender this year.
Well, at least we agree to something with Jared Goff. I'm not a big fan of him, and I don't care how strong of an arm he is. I think he's highly overrated as a quarterback. I think the fact that Sean McVay is there, and this is a make-or-break year for Sean McVay. If this team doesn't make the playoffs for back-to-back years, he might lose his job. This is a guy 2 years ago was in a Super Bowl and got knocked off by the Patriots, and they're a great offensive team. They were the best offensive team in going into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden they couldn't score any touchdowns really in the playoff. In the Super Bowl. So I don't know if the Los Angeles Rams are going to be a contender or pretender this year. They're a borderline team for me. If you were to ask me, they're a pretender, but I do like what they have. I like their defense. Aaron Donald is a great player. He's one of the best defensive linemen in the league, if not the best. Jalen Ramsey is a sensational corner. He's the best corner in football. Don't even argue that. He is. I don't want to hear about anybody saying about the Patriots corner or anybody when you're trying to compare and contrast some of the corners that we've talked about over the last couple of years. Jalen Ramsey has been the best. But
hey, I'll take Gilmore over Jalen Ramsey.
Really?
7 days a week.
Really? 7 days a week?
Yeah, I like
Gilmore. Wow.
And Tre'Davious White, too.
Really? Yeah, I like White, too. I like him on Buffalo, too. I think White's a great player. I think this year he's gonna really turn people's heads. We've seen it over the last couple of years, but I think this year is going to be the season where you're going to see White really take over as the best corner in football. But I don't think Gilmore is better than Ramsey. I like how Ramsey is so he's got that ego, the cockiness to him. I love that. I love that about him as a player. I like this team. I think they have good weapons on the outside. And Cooper Kupp, if he could stay on the field, this guy's going to be an all-pro, Pro Bowl player. He's fantastic when he's on the field for Goff. He's their number one target. So, but I think they're more of a pretender than a contender this year. Arizona Cardinals.
Definitely a pretender. I mean, they added DeAndre Hopkins to the lineup. They gave him a bunch of money. Kyler Murray, they got rid of their running back Johnson, but they added some depth as well. But I don't think Kyler Murray is the guy right now. I think that he can maybe elevate his game moving forward, but their defense isn't great. Their offense is solid. You know, they're going to put up a lot of points because of the run and shoot, or not the run and shoot, the whatever they run over there, the Washington State University offense, Mike Leach's offense. But I don't think they have enough. I'm going to go with pretender. I
would say they're a borderline contender and pretender again in this division. I like the Cardinals. I like being the fact that they brought in Hopkins. Hopkins is one of the most explosive wide receivers in the league. He can do a lot of things. You can move him in the slot. You can move him on the outside. He could do a lot of things, especially in that kind of offense where they can maneuver so many wide receivers. They like to spread out. They use the all-four spread out offense with the wide receivers. I could see that this year. I like what we've seen with their running game in the second half of the season. I think they're going to be explosive that way. And their offensive line's a lot better this year. But here's the problem. I don't know with some of the young defensive players moving in this season and what we've seen in the draft and some of the players that they added in the offseason, are they going to be that other half to that team that's going to take over games when they need it? I don't know if they're going to be that kind of team this year. If they are, they're a contender. If not, they're an absolute pretender. And Kyler Murray, this is his second year. He needs to step forward instead of step backwards. We've seen this with quarterbacks, small quarterbacks. They look really, really good their first year, a.k.a. Baker Mayfield, and all of a sudden their sophomore year fall all the way back. I want to see Kyler Murray take 2 steps forward instead of 2 steps back like we saw with Baker Mayfield. If he does that, they're a contender. Green Bay Packers.
Listen, I would never bet against Aaron Rodgers. You know, I think that they're a contender based on the fact that, you know, in their division, the NFC North, they have the Lions in their division. They have the Vikings in their division. And the Bears. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is capable of beating all 3 by himself. So I'm going to go with contender.
I'm going to go with contenders. They're a talented team, and Aaron Rodgers is, to me, when 100% healthy, he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. We saw what Patrick Mahomes did the other day, so we know what Patrick Mahomes is. But Aaron Rodgers is as good or even better than Patrick Mahomes. So you could put him in that echelon of top quarterbacks in the league. So I want to see Aaron Rodgers take this team to higher heights, win his second Super Bowl. The question is, are they going to have enough offense with the wide receivers? We saw what Adams did last year. I don't know who their second wide receiver is going to be this year. And their running game. Aaron Jones was sensational last year, especially in the second half of the season. Could he stay healthy? This guy is a small guy. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to provide and produce. And this offensive line is reconstructed. We don't know what this offensive line is going to do in front of Aaron Rodgers this year. And the defense, they played well last year. This is the best defense we've seen for Aaron Rodgers since the beginning of his career. Let's see what this defense could do this year, especially in big games. So I think they're contenders moving forward. Let's see what they do moving forward for the season. The Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings, you know what? I'm going to put them in the contender category just because, you know, they do have Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. You know, they do have a ton of talent. They did sign Dalvin Cook to a long-term deal. Mike Zimmer is a phenomenal defensive coach, and I'm a big believer in defense, especially in, you know, the black and blue division. So I'm going to go ahead and say contender.
They're an absolute contender. I think they're explosive defensively. They added some good weapons in the offseason, a.k.a. What is his name again, Speedy?
Justin Jefferson.
You know where he comes from. And to me, what this team is as a whole, they're a very well-rounded defensive beast. They're going to be able to get to the quarterback. They're good in the secondary, one of the most talented secondaries in all of football. But also, their offense. They have a great offensive team. Thielen being there, and now they got rid of one guy who went over there to Buffalo, who didn't shut up in the locker room and had his own thoughts to where this team is going. And they just paid Dalvin Cook a lot of money. $67 or $66 million, 5-year contract. That's what they needed. They need this guy to be happy. He's one of the most explosive running backs in football. He could change a game with the blink of an eye. And this is one of the best offensive lines in football. So they're a contender. Kirk Cousins has to make the plays in the big game. That is going to be the question. Extending his contract a year ago for 2 years is going to be important moving forward. Is Kirk Cousins the guy that's going to take this team to higher heights? That's going to be the question. The Chicago Bears.
I'm going to say pretender. I'm not a big believer in Mitchell Trubisky. Well, while they do have a very good defense with Khalil Mack, and company, I'm not a big believer in Mitchell Trubisky. I think that he's starting the season as a starter. I think he's going to end up in that second position. This may be his last year in Chicago. I'm going to go pretender.
Really? I think Mitchell Trubisky is a good quarterback. He had a bad season last year. Second half, he played better. They brought in Foles. I don't know if Foles is going to win the job later in the season. But Mitchell Trubisky, if you compare and contrast Watson's to Mahomes' numbers, you can really compare and contrast the first 2 years to all three of those quarterbacks to being very alike. Last year, Mitch Trubisky.
I can't let you do that.
Why?
You cannot mention Mitchell Trubisky
look at his numbers.
and Mahomes in the same sentence.
But look at their numbers, Eric. The numbers are close. In the first 2 years?
I have to look this up right now.
You got to look it up. Look it up.
Arrow,
I'm telling you.
That is terrible.
What? It's terrible.
Mitchell Trubisky and Patrick Mahomes and Watson in the same sentence?
First 2 years, man. Their numbers are very similar.
All right, their paychecks are very different.
I'm telling you right now, go look at their numbers. We'll come back.
If their numbers are so similar, why aren't their paychecks so similar?
Well, right now, Mitchell Trubisky had a bad season last year. He played bad. Okay. Right. His first 2 seasons, they're very comparable. They really are. I think Mitchell Trubisky's first 2 seasons threw, if I'm not mistaken, between 52 and 53 touchdowns. That's a pretty good season. 2 seasons. And less interceptions. I think he threw 16 interceptions. So I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is as bad as people think he is. I just think right now what he did last year in the first half, especially coming back from an injury early in the season, 3 games, he missed the first 3 or 4 games, and then playing as bad as he did, a lot of people don't think Mitchell Trubisky is the guy, bringing in somebody like Foles. But all in all, I think that he's still a good quarterback, and I think he's going to play better this year. And I think this team is a lot better than people think they are. They're a good defensive team. The schedule doesn't fare well to them, so I think they're a pretender. But I think they're just as good as any team besides the Green Bay Packers in this division. I think Chicago can surprise everybody and win the division. I really do. So I'm going to say they're pretenders just because we don't know what Mitchell Trubisky is going to do this year. But I think they're an explosive team and they're an explosive defense. They really are. The Detroit Lions.
Oh, pretender all day. I know they did add, Adrian Peterson, which is great to see, but I think is a day late and a dollar short for the Lions. They do have a better defense. They added Desmond Trufant in the secondary. I think that's going to help them quite a bit. But listen, the Lions, it's about the mentality. I was over there for 2 years, and their mentality isn't going to take them to the next level. I don't think they believe that they're champions of that division. So I'm going to go pretender.
Now, just listen to these numbers because everybody thinks that Mitchell Trubisky isn't a good quarterback. This is for 3 years, 41 games, 23-18. Completion percentage is 63.4. He has 8,554 yards, 6.7 yards for attempt, touchdowns, 48 touchdowns to 29 interceptions. Those aren't bad numbers.
No, I know, but to compare him to Patrick Mahomes, year 2, 2018, Mitchell Trubisky throws 24 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes throws 50. Patrick Mahomes throws for 5,000 yards. Mitchell Trubisky throws for 3,200.
All right.
That is not in the same stratosphere.
He ran more yards, didn't he?
That's not in the same stratosphere. And then you want to go to year 1? So Mitchell Trubisky, 59%, 2,100 yards passing, 7 passing touchdowns, and Mahomes didn't play. So I guess those 2 years, the first year you can compare, but that second year, come on.
Oh man, listen, I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, but if you look at their numbers, their first 2 seasons, they're very similar. I know Patrick Mahomes didn't play his first season; he was on the bench, and he came in the last game of the season. But their numbers are very similar the first 2 years. If you take out the first year that Patrick Mahomes didn't play. So I know you're laughing, you're giggling. I don't think he's Patrick Mahomes. I never said Mitch Trubisky is Patrick Mahomes. So you're misconstruing what I'm saying. I think a lot of people think that he's worse than what he really is. He's better than what he is.